March 15, 2024. A 10-year-old black girl named Destiny watched the cold billionaire march toward his Bentley, keys in hand, ready to abandon everything. So she snatched them and ran, refusing to give them back no matter how much he yelled. 60 seconds later, a fireball erupted from the office tower he was about to enter, killing 17 people and turning his empire to ash. But here's what no one could explain. How did a child from the projects know something was about to happen that would change a billionaire's life forever? The morning had started like every other morning in Marcus Webb's life. Cold, calculated, and completely alone. He stood in the penthouse suite of the Grandview Hotel in downtown Chicago, staring at his reflection in the floor-to-ceiling windows. The city sprawled below him, a grid of steel and glass that he'd once helped build. Now it felt like a cage. His phone buzzed for the 14th time. Another board member. Another crisis. Another reason why he needed to get to Webb Industries headquarters immediately. The company was hemorrhaging investors after last quarter's disaster, and today's emergency meeting would determine whether his 30-year legacy survived or crumbled. Marcus grabbed his briefcase and headed for the elevator. He didn't notice the cleaning cart in the hallway or the small brown face peeking around the corner. He never noticed anyone anymore. People were obstacles, variables, complications in an equation that refused to balance. The lobby was pristine and empty, exactly how he preferred it. The valet had his Bentley waiting outside, engine purring. Marcus checked his Rolex. 8:47 a.m. 13 minutes to get across town. The meeting started at 9 sharp, and Marcus Webb was never late. He pushed through the revolving doors and descended the marble steps, his Italian leather shoes clicking against stone. The March wind cut through downtown Chicago like a blade, but Marcus didn't feel it. He hadn't felt much of anything since the accident 3 years ago. That night his wife, Alicia, and their infant son, Jordan, died in the fire that consumed their home while he worked late at the office. Again, the guilt had calcified into something harder than grief. It had become a shell, an armor that kept the world at a safe distance. Emotions were liabilities. Connections were weaknesses. The only thing that mattered was control, and right now he was losing it. Marcus reached for the car door handle. "Mister, wait." He turned, irritated. A little black girl in a faded purple jacket and worn sneakers stood on the sidewalk, holding something behind her back. Her hair was pulled into 2 puffs, and her brown eyes were impossibly wide, urgent. "What?" Marcus snapped. "You can't go," she said breathlessly. "Not yet. You gotta wait." Marcus felt his jaw tighten. "I don't have time for games. Where's your parents?" "Inside. She cleans the floors." The girl took a step closer. "But you really can't leave, mister. Something bad's gonna happen." Marcus glanced at his watch. 8:49. 12 minutes. "Move aside, kid." But when he reached for the door again, the girl darted forward with surprising speed and snatched the keys right out of his hand. "Hey!" Marcus shouted. "Give those back." She shook her head violently, clutching the keys to her chest. "No, not until you listen." People on the sidewalk stopped to stare. A businessman paused mid-stride. A woman with a stroller pulled out her phone. Marcus felt heat rise up his neck. This was absurd. He was Marcus Webb, former CEO, billionaire, a man who'd built skyscrapers and tech empires, and he was being held hostage by a 10-year-old. "Listen to me very carefully," Marcus said, forcing his voice into a calm he didn't feel. "I have an extremely important meeting. If I'm late, hundreds of people lose their jobs. Now give me my keys." Destiny, though he didn't know her name yet, just shook her head again. Tears brimmed in her eyes, but her grip on the keys didn't loosen. "I can't let you go," she whispered. "I saw it. In my dream last night. The building. It's gonna explode." Marcus blinked. Then he laughed. A bitter, joyless sound. "A dream? You're telling me you had a dream?" "I know how it sounds," she said desperately. "But I see things sometimes. Real things. And last night I saw fire and smoke and people screaming and—" "Enough!" Marcus stepped forward, towering over her. "This is ridiculous. Give me the keys, or I'm calling the police." She stepped back, shaking her head so hard her puffs bounced. "Please, mister. Just wait 5 more minutes. Please." Marcus pulled out his phone. 8:51. The meeting was 9 blocks away. If he left right now, sprinted to the valet stand and got another key, he might. A woman's voice cut through the tension. "Destiny, what are you doing?" A black woman in her early 30s rushed out of the hotel lobby, her cleaning uniform still on, her face stricken with panic. She grabbed Destiny by the shoulders. "Baby, what did you do? Did you take this man's keys?" "Mama, he can't go to that building. Give them back right now." The woman turned to Marcus, her eyes filled with mortification. "Sir, I am so sorry. She's been having these episodes, bad dreams. I don't know what's gotten into her. But just make her give them back," Marcus said coldly. "Now." The woman, her name tag read Shanice, pried the keys from Destiny's fingers. The girl sobbed, reaching for them, but her mother held firm. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Webb," Shanice said, handing the keys over with trembling hands. "This will never happen again. I promise." Marcus snatched the keys without a word. He turned toward his car, his hand already on the door handle, his mind calculating routes and excuses and damage control. Behind him, Destiny screamed, "No, please don't go." Marcus ignored her. He slid into the driver's seat, slammed the door, and started the engine. Through the window, he saw Shanice pulling Destiny away, the girl thrashing and crying like her heart was breaking. Ridiculous, Marcus thought. Absolutely ridiculous. He shifted into drive. And then the world exploded. The blast was so loud it felt like the sky itself had shattered. Marcus's hands jerked on the wheel. His head whipped toward the downtown skyline just in time to see it. A column of fire erupting from the Webb Industries tower, 10 stories up, right where the executive conference room was located. Glass and steel rained down onto the street below. Smoke billowed into the sky, black and choking. People screamed. Car alarms shrieked. Marcus sat frozen behind the wheel, his brain refusing to process what his eyes were seeing. The building. His building. The meeting. Everyone in that room. He threw the car into park and stumbled out onto the sidewalk. His legs felt like water. His chest wouldn't expand. Around him, chaos erupted. People running, sirens wailing in the distance, someone shouting into a phone. Marcus turned slowly. Destiny stood on the sidewalk, her face streaked with tears, her small body trembling. Her mother held her close, staring at the burning tower with wide, disbelieving eyes. The girl looked at Marcus, and in her gaze he saw something that terrified him more than the explosion, more than the death, more than the ruin of everything he'd built. He saw that she had known. "How?" Marcus's voice came out as a rasp. "How did you—" Destiny didn't answer. She just buried her face in her mother's shoulder and wept. Marcus looked back at the tower. Flames licked at the sky. Emergency vehicles were already screaming toward the scene. And somewhere in that inferno were people he knew. Colleagues, employees, friends. If he'd allowed himself to have any, he should have been there, he should have died. But a 10-year-old girl with impossible knowledge had saved his life. The news declared it a gas leak. Faulty maintenance, they said. A tragic accident that claimed 17 lives, including 6 members of Marcus Webb's executive board. The investigation would take months. The lawsuits would take years. Marcus didn't hear any of it. He spent the first 72 hours in a police station conference room, answering the same questions over and over. Why weren't you there? What delayed you? Do you have enemies? Is there anyone who would benefit from your death? Each time he told them the truth. A child took my keys. I was 30 seconds late getting in my car. They asked for her name. He didn't know it. They asked for surveillance footage. The hotel's cameras had malfunctioned that morning. A glitch the tech team couldn't explain. They asked if he believed in premonitions. Marcus said no, but his voice faltered when he did. By the 4th day, the media had turned him into a ghost story. The billionaire who cheated death. The man who should have died. Some called it divine intervention. Others called it suspicious. Marcus called it nothing because he couldn't find words for what he felt. On the 5th morning, he returned to the Grandview Hotel. Not because he wanted to, but because the penthouse was the only place left that felt familiar. Everything else, his office, his board, his reputation, had burned. He stood in the lobby, staring at the marble floors Shanice had probably polished 100 times. He didn't know what he was looking for until he saw her. She was pushing a cleaning cart near the elevators, her movements mechanical, exhausted. When she glanced up and saw him, she froze. Marcus crossed the lobby slowly. She didn't run, but he could see her body tense like she wanted to. "I'm not here to cause trouble," Marcus said quietly. Shanice's jaw tightened. "Then why are you here?" "I need to talk to your daughter." "Absolutely not." Her voice was sharp, protective. "You stay away from her. Please." The word felt foreign in his mouth. Marcus Webb didn't beg. But something had shifted in him since the explosion. Something he couldn't name. "I just need to understand." Shanice stared at him for a long moment, her dark eyes searching his face for danger, for manipulation, for whatever rich men usually wanted. Finally, she sighed. "She's been having nightmares every night since the explosion," Shanice said quietly. "Waking up screaming. She won't talk about it. Won't eat much. I don't know how to help her." Marcus felt something twist in his chest. Guilt, maybe, or recognition. "Where is she now?" "After-school program at St. Catherine's. 2 blocks east." Shanice hesitated. "But if you upset her, if you make this worse, I don't care how much money you have. I will hurt you. Do you understand me?" Marcus nodded. "I understand." St. Catherine's Community Center was a squat brick building wedged between a laundromat and a bodega. Inside, a dozen kids sat at folding tables doing homework while 2 tired volunteers tried to maintain order. Marcus stood in the doorway, suddenly aware of how out of place he looked. A $1,000 suit in a room full of donated chairs and peeling paint. He spotted Destiny immediately. She sat alone in the corner, a workbook open in front of her, but she wasn't writing. She was staring at the wall, her small face blank. Marcus approached slowly. When his shadow fell across her table, she looked up. Her eyes widened, and for a second he thought she might run. Instead, she just watched him, waiting. "Can I sit?" Marcus asked. She nodded. He pulled out a plastic chair that creaked under his weight. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Around them, children laughed and argued and lived, but their corner felt separate, suspended. "You saved my life," Marcus said finally. Destiny looked down at her hands. "I tried to tell you." "I know. I didn't listen." He paused. "I should have." She picked at a thread on her jacket. "Everyone thinks I'm crazy now. The other kids, the teachers, they whisper." Marcus knew that feeling, being looked at like you were broken, dangerous, or other. "I don't think you're crazy. You did. When I tried to stop you." He couldn't argue with that. "You're right. I did. But I was wrong." Destiny finally looked at him, really looked at him. "Do you believe me now? About dreams?" Marcus wanted to say no. Every rational part of his brain screamed that premonitions weren't real, that coincidences happened, that there had to be a logical explanation. But 17 people were dead, and he was alive because a 10-year-old girl had stolen his keys. "I don't know what I believe," he admitted. "But I know you saw something. And I know you were right." "I see lots of things," Destiny whispered. "Sometimes they're just dreams. But sometimes—" She trailed off, her eyes going distant. "Sometimes they're real. And I can't tell the difference until it's too late." "How long has this been happening?" "Since I was 6. After my dad died." She said it matter-of-factly, like she'd learned not to expect sympathy. "Mama says it's just my brain trying to make sense of being sad. But I know it's more than that." Marcus felt his throat tighten. Loss as a catalyst. Trauma that reshaped reality. He understood that more than he wanted to. "What did you see?" he asked gently. "In the dream about the explosion?" Destiny's hands started to shake. "Fire. So much fire. And people trapped behind glass banging on windows. And you." She looked up at him, tears spilling over. You were supposed to be there. In my dream, you died too. But then I woke up, and Mama was getting ready for work, and I begged her to take me with her because I knew you'd be at that hotel. You didn't even know who I was. I saw your face in the dream, and your car. The black one with the silver lady on the hood. She meant the Bentley's hood ornament. When I saw you in real life, I knew I had to stop you. Marcus sat back, his mind reeling. This wasn't possible. It violated every law of physics, every principle of logic. And yet, do you still have dreams? He asked. About me? Destiny hesitated, then nodded. Every night since the explosion. You're in all of them now. What am I doing? She bit her lip, considering whether to tell him. Finally, she whispered, You're looking for something, but you can't find it because you're looking in the wrong place. What am I looking for? I don't know. Dreams don't tell me everything. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Are you mad at me? For taking your keys? Marcus felt something crack inside him. Some piece of the armor he'd built around his heart. No, Destiny. I'm not mad. I'm grateful. People died anyway, she said, her voice small and broken. I saved you, but I couldn't save them. And there it was, the guilt that Marcus knew so well, now mirrored in a child's eyes. The crushing weight of survival. The impossible mathematics of who lives and who dies and why. He did something he hadn't done in 3 years. He reached across the table and took her small hand in his. Listen to me, Marcus said firmly. What happened to those people is not your fault. You're 10 years old. You did everything you could. You saved a life. That matters. But what if I could have saved more? What if I'd told someone about the dream earlier or... Stop. His grip tightened gently. I spent 3 years blaming myself for not being home the night my family died. 3 years thinking if I'd just left work earlier, or checked the smoke detectors or done 1,000 other things, they'd still be alive. And you know what all that blame got me? Destiny shook her head. Nothing. Except loneliness. Marcus's voice cracked. Don't make my mistake. Don't let guilt steal your life before you've even lived it. She stared at him, and in that moment, something passed between them. An understanding. A recognition of shared pain that needed no explanation. Why are you being nice to me? Destiny asked quietly. Most grown-ups just think I'm weird. Marcus smiled. A real smile, the first in longer than he could remember. Maybe I'm weird too. Behind them, a volunteer called out that the program was ending. Parents and guardians started filtering in. Marcus stood, suddenly aware he'd stayed longer than he'd intended. Will you come back? Destiny asked, looking up at him with something like hope in her eyes. He should have said no. Should have walked away and returned to what was left of his controlled, isolated life. Should have let this child and her impossible gift fade into the background like everything else he'd learned to ignore. Instead, he said, Yes, if you want me to. Destiny nodded, a small smile breaking through. Okay, maybe you can help me with my math homework. Mama tries, but she falls asleep after her shift. Marcus laughed. Actually laughed. I think I can manage that. When Shanice arrived to pick up Destiny, she found them sitting together, working through multiplication problems. She approached cautiously, ready to intervene, but stopped when she saw her daughter's face. Lighter than it had been in days, Marcus stood when he saw her. Thank you for letting me talk to her. Shanice studied him for a long moment. Did you get what you came for? I'm not sure, Marcus admitted. But I think maybe we both needed this. As they walked toward the exit, Destiny tugged on his sleeve. Mr. Webb. Yes. In my dreams, you're always alone. In this big, cold place with too many windows. She tilted her head. But you don't have to be alone. Marcus felt his chest constrict. I'll remember that. Outside, as he watched Shanice and Destiny walk hand in hand down the Chicago street, Marcus realized something had shifted. The world no longer felt quite so distant. The armor around his heart had cracked just enough to let something in. Something like hope. Marcus Webb started showing up at St. Catherine's 3 times a week. At first, the volunteers eyed him with suspicion. A billionaire in their underfunded community center raised questions. But when he arrived with new computers for the homework lab and didn't demand his name be plastered anywhere, their skepticism softened into cautious acceptance. He told himself he was just checking on the girl who'd saved his life, making sure she was okay, fulfilling some moral obligation. But the truth, the one he couldn't quite admit yet, was simpler. Being around Destiny made the world feel less empty. She was brilliant in ways that had nothing to do with prophetic dreams. She could solve complex math problems in her head, asked questions about engineering that most adults wouldn't think to ask, and had a memory that captured every detail. Marcus found himself explaining how buildings were constructed, how traffic patterns worked, how the city's infrastructure held itself together. But what if it doesn't? Destiny asked one afternoon, 3 weeks after the explosion. They sat at their usual corner table, her homework forgotten. What if everything that holds stuff together just stops? Marcus looked at her carefully. Are you asking about buildings? Or are you asking about something else? She twisted her pencil between her fingers. I had another dream last night. His pulse quickened. About what? Water. Lots of water. And people running. She closed her eyes, trying to pull details from memory. There was a bridge. Not the one by the lake, a different one. And metal breaking. And you were there again. But this time you were trying to help people and… She stopped abruptly, her eyes snapping open. It doesn't matter. It was probably just a regular dream. Destiny. Marcus leaned forward. Every time you've told me about a dream like this, something in it has been real. The explosion. The lawsuit I didn't know was coming. That fire in the apartment building on State Street. That was just a coincidence, she said quickly, but her voice wavered. 5 coincidences isn't coincidence anymore. It's a pattern. He kept his voice gentle. I need you to tell me everything you remember. She looked torn, afraid. What if I'm wrong? What if people panic for nothing? Then we'll deal with it. But what if you're right and we do nothing? Over the next 10 minutes, Destiny described everything. The Randolph Street Bridge, the sound of metal groaning, cars stopped in traffic, water rising faster than it should. She couldn't tell if it was tomorrow or next month or next year. But the dream had the same quality as the explosion vision. Sharp, vivid, urgent. Marcus pulled out his phone and started making calls. First to the city's infrastructure department, then to his few remaining contacts in emergency management. Most dismissed him politely. One engineer agreed to inspect the bridge when they got around to it. No one treated it as urgent. They don't believe you, Destiny said quietly, watching him hang up the 5th call. They don't believe either of us. Marcus rubbed his temples. But I'm not giving up. The story leaked 3 days later. A tabloid reporter had been digging into the explosion, and somehow, through a witness, a bribed hotel employee, or pure determination, they'd uncovered the detail Marcus had tried to keep private. A little black girl with psychic visions had prevented him from dying. The headline screamed across morning news sites. Billionaire's guardian angel. Child psychic saves Marcus Webb from fiery death. Marcus saw it at 6 a.m. in his penthouse. By 7 a.m., news vans surrounded the Grandview Hotel. By 8 a.m., they tracked down Shanice's address. He called her immediately. Don't go outside. Don't answer the door. I'm sending security. Security? Shanice's voice was tight with panic. Mr. Webb, what's happening? There are people with cameras outside my building, and they're asking my neighbors about Destiny, and… I know. I'm handling it. Stay inside. Handle it? How did they even find out about her? Did you tell them? No. I swear to you I didn't. Marcus was already grabbing his coat, heading for the elevator. But they know, and we need to protect her. 20 minutes later, Marcus arrived at the modest apartment building on the south side where Shanice and Destiny lived. Reporters swarmed him the moment he stepped out of the car, shoving microphones in his face. Mr. Webb, is it true a child predicted the explosion? Does she have psychic abilities? Are you exploiting this girl for publicity? Marcus pushed through without answering. His security team, hired just that morning, formed a barrier as he entered the building. He took the stairs 2 at a time to the 3rd floor. Shanice opened the door before he could knock. Her eyes were red, furious. "You need to fix this. Now." Inside the small, tidy apartment, Destiny sat curled on the couch, clutching a stuffed rabbit. She looked smaller than usual, frightened. "I'm sorry," Marcus said immediately. "I never wanted this to happen. But it did happen." Shanice's voice shook. "And now my daughter is being called a freak on the internet. People are saying she's possessed, that I'm using her for money, that—" Her voice broke. "We can't even go outside." Marcus felt the weight of responsibility crushing down. He'd been so focused on understanding Destiny's gift that he hadn't considered the consequences of the world finding out. "I'll make a statement," he said. "I'll tell them it was a misunderstanding, that—" "What? That she didn't save you?" Shanice shook her head. "We can't lie, Mr. Webb, but we also can't live like this." Destiny spoke up quietly from the couch. "It's my fault. I should have kept it a secret." "No." Marcus crossed the room and knelt in front of her. "None of this is your fault. Not the explosion. Not the reporters, none of it. But everyone's mad now. Mama's mad. You're worried. And the people outside want to take my picture like I'm a zoo animal." Marcus looked back at Shanice. "Let me help. I can move you somewhere safe. Somewhere private where reporters can't find you." Shanice's expression hardened. "I'm not taking your money. It's not about money. It's about safety. Everything's about money with people like you." She crossed her arms. "I've worked my whole life to give Destiny a stable home. I'm not going to run and hide because some vultures with cameras show up." "Then what do you want me to do?" Marcus's voice rose with frustration. "Tell me how to fix this." "You can't fix it," Shanice shouted back. "That's what you rich people never understand. Not everything can be fixed with money or power or connections. Sometimes the damage is done, and all you can do is survive it." The apartment fell silent except for the muffled shouts of reporters 3 floors below. Destiny stood up, still clutching her rabbit. "Stop fighting." Both adults turned to her. "Mama, Mr. Webb's just trying to help." She looked at Marcus. "And Mr. Webb, Mama's just scared. We're all scared." Out of the mouths of children, Marcus thought, came the truth adults were too proud to speak. He took a breath, forcing himself to calm down. "You're right. I'm sorry." He looked at Shanice. "I'm not trying to control this. I owe you both more than I can ever repay. And watching you suffer because of me is—" He couldn't finish the sentence. Shanice's expression softened slightly. She sighed, exhaustion replacing anger. "We'll figure it out. But right now, Destiny can't go to school, I can't go to work, and we're trapped in this apartment. So if you have any ideas that don't involve charity or pity, I'm listening." Marcus thought for a moment. "What if we control the narrative? Give them a story so boring they lose interest." "How?" "I called a press conference. I explained that yes, Destiny delayed me that morning, but there was no psychic vision. She was just a kid who took my keys as a prank. The timing was coincidental. I emphasized that she's a child who deserves privacy, and anyone harassing her or her family will face legal action." Shanice frowned. "But that's lying." "It's protecting her," Marcus countered. "The truth is too complicated, too sensational. They'll never leave her alone if they think she can predict the future. But if she's just a normal kid who accidentally saved someone, that's a one-day story. It'll die down." Destiny tugged her mother's sleeve. "I don't want to be famous, Mama. I just want to go back to school." Shanice looked between them, weighing impossible choices. Finally, she nodded. "Okay, we'll try it your way. But if this makes things worse—" "It won't," Marcus promised, though he wasn't sure he could keep it. That evening, Marcus stood in front of a dozen cameras outside the ruins of Webb Industries and lied with the conviction of a man who'd once built empires on negotiation and strategy. "There was no premonition," he said firmly. "Destiny Johnson is a bright, normal 10-year-old who made a childish mistake that happened to save my life. The explosion was a tragedy, but attributing it to anything supernatural is disrespectful to the victims and harmful to a child who deserves privacy. Anyone continuing to harass this family will be met with the full force of my legal team. The reporters shouted questions, but Marcus turned and walked away. That night, the internet buzzed with theories. Some believed him, others didn't. But slowly, gradually, the frenzy began to die down. Marcus returned to the apartment with takeout, Chinese food, pizza, enough to feed a family for days. Shanice let him in, her guard still up but lowered. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for the press conference. It's not over yet," Marcus warned. "But hopefully it's enough." Destiny sat at the kitchen table, drawing. When Marcus looked over her shoulder, he saw she'd sketched the Randolph Street Bridge, detailed and precise, with small cracks spreading through the support beams. His blood ran cold. "Destiny," he said carefully, "when did you draw this?" "Just now. I couldn't stop thinking about the dream." She looked up at him. "Mr. Webb, what if it's not just a dream? What if it's a warning?" Marcus looked at Shanice, then back at Destiny. The stakes had just gotten higher, and this time he couldn't afford to ignore her. The call came at 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday in early April. Marcus jolted awake to his phone vibrating across the nightstand. Shanice's name flashed on the screen. He answered immediately. "She won't stop screaming." Shanice's voice was ragged, desperate. "I've tried everything. She's having the dream again, but worse. Marcus, I don't know what to do." He was already pulling on clothes. "I'm coming. Hold on." 15 minutes later, he stood in their apartment. Destiny was curled in Shanice's lap on the couch, trembling violently, her eyes open but unseeing. She muttered in broken fragments. "Water rising. Metal screaming. Too many people." Marcus knelt in front of her. "Destiny, I'm here. Can you hear me?" Her eyes focused slowly. When she saw him, she grabbed his shirt with both fists. "It's tomorrow. The bridge. It happens tomorrow during rush hour." Tears streamed down her face. "I can see their faces. The people in the cars. They're trapped, and the water." A sob choked off her words. Shanice held her tighter, looking at Marcus with barely contained panic. "What do we do?" Marcus's mind raced. He'd spent 3 weeks trying to get anyone, to take the bridge threat seriously. Engineers dismissed it. City officials said inspections were pending. His own reputation, already damaged by the explosion, made him easy to ignore. Billionaires cry wolf. No one listens. But if Destiny was right, hundreds of people would die in less than 18 hours. "I need to make calls," Marcus said, standing. "Wake people up. Force them to listen." "They didn't listen before," Shanice said bitterly. "Why would they now?" "Because I'm not asking anymore." For the next 6 hours, Marcus became a man possessed. He called the mayor's office, the police commissioner, structural engineers, and news stations. He threatened lawsuits, offered money for emergency inspections, and demanded action. Most hung up on him. Others promised to look into it with the kind of tone that meant never. By noon, Marcus stood on the Randolph Street Bridge himself, filming with his phone. He posted to every social media platform he still had access to, "This bridge will collapse. I don't care if you believe me. Stay off it today." The internet exploded with mockery. Conspiracy theorists embraced him. News outlets called it a publicity stunt. Former colleagues issued statements distancing themselves from his erratic behavior. At 3 p.m., the city released an official response. "The Randolph Street Bridge has been inspected and deemed safe. Mr. Webb's claims are unfounded and irresponsible." Marcus stared at the statement on his phone, fury and helplessness warring inside him. They'd done a visual inspection, 30 minutes with binoculars from the shore. Nothing structural, nothing real. Destiny's drawing haunted him. The cracks she'd sketched weren't visible from the surface. They were deep inside the support columns, hidden where only catastrophic failure would reveal them. He called Shanice. "Keep her home. Don't let her near the river." "We're not going anywhere," Shanice promised. "But Marcus, what if you're wrong? What if this time it really is just a nightmare? Then I'll be wrong, he said. But I'd rather be wrong than late. At 4:30 p.m., Marcus drove to the bridge entrance and parked his Bentley sideways across 2 lanes, blocking traffic. Horns blared immediately. Drivers screamed at him. Someone called the police. He stood beside his car, arms crossed, and didn't move. Within minutes, squad cars arrived. Officers approached cautiously, hands near their weapons. Marcus recognized the lead detective, Harrison, a man who'd questioned him after the explosion. "Mr. Webb," Harrison said carefully, "you need to move your vehicle." "No, sir. You're creating a public hazard. There's going to be a collapse. I'm not letting anyone else on this bridge." Harrison's expression shifted from annoyance to concern. Not for the bridge, but for Marcus's mental state. "We've been over this. The bridge is safe." "It's not." Marcus's voice cracked. "I know how this sounds. I know what you think of me, but I'm begging you, close the bridge. Just for today. If nothing happens, arrest me. Charge me with whatever you want. But please." Behind Harrison, more cars piled up. News helicopters circled overhead. Marcus Webb, once one of Chicago's most respected businessmen, had become a spectacle. Harrison spoke into his radio, then looked back at Marcus with something almost like pity. "I'm sorry, sir, but I have orders to remove you." 2 officers moved forward. Marcus didn't resist as they handcuffed him and led him toward a patrol car. As they did, he looked back at the bridge. Still standing, still filled with evening commuters heading home. Maybe he was wrong. Maybe Destiny's dreams were just dreams after all. Maybe he'd destroyed what remained of his reputation for nothing. They were loading him into the police car when it happened. A sound like thunder, but deeper. Wrong. The kind of sound that makes your bones vibrate. Everyone froze. The central support column of the Randolph Street Bridge buckled. Metal shrieked. Concrete shattered. And then, as if in slow motion, the entire middle section collapsed into the Chicago River, taking 47 cars with it. The world became screaming and sirens and chaos. Marcus stood frozen, still handcuffed, watching the bridge fall exactly as Destiny had described. Water geysering up. People trapped in sinking vehicles. Emergency crews are already racing toward the disaster. Detective Harrison turned to him, face drained of color. "How did you?" "I tried to tell you," Marcus whispered. "I tried." They removed his handcuffs. Someone thrust a phone at him. Reporters demanding statements. Officials suddenly desperate for information. But Marcus just stared at the destruction, his heart hammering. Destiny had been right. Again. But this time he'd failed to stop it.by midnight. The death toll stood at 23. 19 more were in critical condition. The news played footage of Marcus blocking traffic, interviewed witnesses who called him a hero, officials who'd ignored him looking for somewhere to hide. Marcus sat in his penthouse, numb, watching coverage he couldn't process. His phone rang. "Shanice." "She's not waking up," Shanice said, her voice hollow with terror. "Destiny. She's breathing, but her eyes won't open. The paramedics are here, and they don't know what's wrong. And Marcus." Her voice shattered. "What's happening to my baby?" Marcus was already running for the door. "I'm coming. Hold on." As he raced through Chicago's streets, one thought consumed him. The cost of Destiny's gift might be higher than any of them understood, and he might be the reason she was paying for it. Destiny remained unconscious for 48 hours. Doctors ran every test imaginable, MRIs, EEGs, blood work, and found nothing. Her brain showed normal activity. Her vitals were stable. By every medical measure, she should have been awake. But she wasn't. Marcus stayed in the hospital waiting room the entire time, leaving only when Shanice insisted. He brought coffee, food she wouldn't eat, and kept vigil like a man seeking absolution. On the 3rd day, while Shanice dozed in the chair beside Destiny's bed, the girl's eyes finally opened. "Mr. Webb." Her voice was barely a whisper. He was at her bedside instantly. "I'm here. You're okay. You're safe." The bridge. Tears slipped down her cheeks. "I saw them. The people who died. I felt them die. Marcus's throat closed. Destiny, that wasn't your fault? I know. She looked at him with eyes far too old for 10 years. But knowing doesn't make it hurt less. Shanice woke, gasping with relief, pulling her daughter into her arms. For several minutes, the only sound was Shanice's sobbing and whispered prayers. When the doctors cleared Destiny to go home 3 days later, the world outside had changed. The bridge collapse investigation had revealed exactly what Destiny had drawn. Internal fractures in the support columns, invisible to surface inspections, catastrophic under stress. The city faced lawsuits. Officials resigned. And Marcus Webb, the man they'd called crazy, was suddenly being called something else. A hero who tried to warn them. He hated the word. The morning Destiny was discharged, reporters mobbed the hospital entrance. Marcus's security team formed a barrier, but the questions still flew. Mr. Webb, how did you know about the bridge? Is it true the girl predicted this? Will you accept the mayor's apology? Marcus stopped walking. His security chief touched his arm. Sir, we should keep moving. But Marcus shook his head. He turned to face the cameras. I'm going to say this once, he began, his voice steady but hard. For 3 weeks, I tried to warn this city about that bridge. I called officials, engineers, and emergency services. I was ignored, dismissed, and mocked. 23 people died because bureaucracy valued appearances over safety. The crowd went silent. You want to call me a hero? I'm not. I blocked traffic for 10 minutes. The real hero is a 10-year-old girl who saw catastrophe coming and had the courage to speak up, even though she knew no one would believe her. She carried that weight alone while adults failed her. Are you confirming she's psychic? A reporter shouted. Marcus's jaw tightened. I'm confirming that she's a child who deserves privacy, respect, and a chance to heal from the trauma I helped cause. Anyone who harasses her or her family will answer to me. And unlike this city's infrastructure, I keep my promises. He turned and walked away, leaving the reporters scrambling. 2 weeks later, Marcus stood before the Chicago City Council in a chamber packed with victims' families, survivors, and media. He'd been invited to testify about the collapse, but he had a different agenda. I'm not here to point fingers, Marcus began, though his presence did exactly that. I'm here to propose a solution. He activated the presentation behind him. The Webb Foundation for Public Safety, fully funded by my personal assets. Its mission: create an independent early warning system for infrastructure failures, environmental disasters, and public hazards. We'll employ engineers, data analysts, and yes, people with unconventional insight. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. This foundation will investigate credible threats regardless of how unusual the source. We'll bypass bureaucratic delays and have direct authority to recommend evacuations or closures. We'll work with city officials, but we won't be bound by their timelines or politics. A councilman stood. Mr. Webb, are you suggesting we outsource public safety to a private foundation? I'm suggesting we stop letting people die while committees deliberate. Marcus shot back. The Randolph Street collapse was preventable. The Webb Industries explosion was preventable. How many more tragedies will we ignore until the evidence is literally falling around us? Another council member spoke up. And who decides what threats are credible? You. Marcus paused, then said something that shocked the room. No. I'm appointing a board of directors. Structural engineers, emergency management professionals, community advocates, and 1 seat permanently reserved for someone under 18. Because young people see what we're too cynical to notice. The chamber erupted in debate. Some called it visionary. Others called it dangerous. Giving a billionaire that much authority, letting a child influence public policy. Marcus waited for the noise to die down. I'm not asking permission. The foundation launches regardless of this council's blessing. But I'm offering partnership. Let's build something that might save the next person who tries to warn us. He locked eyes with the mayor, who'd publicly apologized but privately blamed Marcus for the panic he'd caused. Or we can keep doing what we've always done, and count bodies afterward. The vote came 3 hours later. 7-4 in favor of partnership. That evening, Marcus visited Shanice and Destiny at their apartment. He brought a Chinese takeout again and a folder of legal documents. "What's this?" Shanice asked, suspicious. "The foundation paperwork. I need your permission to include Destiny." "Absolutely not," Shanice said immediately. "She's been through enough." "I agree," Marcus said, surprising her. "That's why she wouldn't work for the foundation. She'd advise it. Only when she wants to, only when she feels safe, and only with your approval every single time." Destiny looked up from her drawing. "What would I do?" "Tell us what you see. When you're ready. If you're ready." Marcus crouched to her eye level. "But only if you want to help. This isn't an obligation. It's a choice." "Will it save people?" she asked quietly. "I think it might." She looked at her mother. "Mama." Shanice's eyes filled with tears. She'd spent Destiny's whole life trying to protect her from a world that saw her as different, dangerous, or other. Now that same world wanted to use her gift. But maybe, Shanice thought, using it on her own terms was better than hiding it in shame. "If you want to," Shanice whispered. "Then yes." Destiny nodded solemnly. "Okay, I'll try." Marcus extended his hand. She shook it, small fingers in his large palm, sealing a promise between two people who'd saved each other's lives. Outside, Chicago's skyline glittered against the night. Somewhere in that city, another disaster was probably brewing. Another warning would go unheeded. Another tragedy would unfold. But this time, they'd be ready. This time, they'd listen. 6 months later, Marcus stood in the newly opened Webb Foundation headquarters on Michigan Avenue, watching through the glass walls as engineers analyzed data streams from across the city. Seismic sensors, structural monitors, weather patterns, all feeding into a system designed to catch disasters before they caught people. But the heart of the operation wasn't the technology. It was the conference room on the 3rd floor where Destiny sat once a week, if she chose to come, sharing whatever dreams or intuitions felt urgent. Sometimes it was nothing. Sometimes it was everything. Today, she sat at the table with 3 engineers, describing a recurring image of smoke in the subway tunnels near Roosevelt Station. The engineers listened, really listened, and cross-referenced her description with maintenance records. They found a ventilation system operating at 70% capacity, right where Destiny had pointed. Marcus watched from the doorway, careful not to intrude. Shanice stood beside him. "She's good at this," Shanice said quietly. "Explaining what she sees. Making them understand. She's extraordinary," Marcus agreed. "But how's she doing?" "Really?" Shanice considered. "Better. The nightmares are less frequent. She's sleeping through most nights now. And having people actually listen to her instead of calling her crazy." Her voice caught. "That's changed everything." Marcus nodded. The foundation had given Destiny something he'd never expected: validation. Her gift wasn't a curse to hide. It was an ability that saved lives when paired with people willing to act. "And you?" Marcus asked. "How are you holding up?" Shanice smiled, the first genuine one he'd seen from her in months. "I got promoted. Hotel management. They said it was overdue." She glanced at him. "Had nothing to do with you pulling strings?" "I made one phone call," Marcus admitted, "but only to make sure they saw what you'd been doing all along." The promotion was earned. "One phone call from Marcus Webb isn't just one phone call," Shanice said, but her tone was warm, teasing almost. "But thank you." Inside the conference room, Destiny finished her presentation. The engineers thanked her, took notes, and promised to investigate within 48 hours. She gathered her backpack and spotted Marcus and her mother watching. She waved, grinning. That evening, the 3 of them had dinner at a small Italian restaurant Marcus used to avoid because it reminded him of dates with Alicia. Now, sitting across from Shanice and Destiny, the memories didn't sting. They just existed, part of his history but no longer his prison. "Mr. Webb," Destiny said, twirling spaghetti on her fork, "can I ask you something?" "Always. Do you still think about the people who died? in the explosion, and on the bridge. Shanice tensed. Destiny, you don't have to. It's okay, Marcus said gently. He looked at Destiny. Yes, I think about them every day. Does it get easier? No, he admitted. But it gets different. The guilt doesn't disappear. You just learn to carry it alongside everything else. The good memories, the people you did save, the work that matters now. Destiny nodded, processing. I think I understand. It's like, the sad stuff doesn't go away, but it makes more room for the happy stuff, too. Marcus felt his chest tighten with something between grief and gratitude. Yes, exactly like that. Shanice reached across the table and squeezed his hand briefly. A simple gesture, but it carried weight. Acknowledgement of shared experience, mutual respect, maybe even something that could become friendship. Later that night, Marcus returned to his penthouse. The space looked different now, less sterile, more lived in. Photos on the mantle, him and Destiny at the foundation's opening, Shanice laughing at some joke he'd made, the three of them at a Cubs game. He poured a glass of whiskey and stood by the window, looking out at Chicago's skyline. Somewhere out there, the foundation sensors were monitoring bridges, buildings, and tunnels. Somewhere out there, Destiny was sleeping peacefully, no longer afraid of her dreams. Somewhere out there, Shanice was building a life that didn't depend on scrubbing other people's floors. And here he stood, Marcus Webb, the man who should have died twice but didn't. His phone buzzed. A text from Destiny. Mr. Webb, I forgot to tell you. I dreamed about you again last night. But this time you weren't alone. You were smiling. I think that means you're gonna be okay. Marcus smiled, his vision blurring slightly. He typed back, I think you're right. Thank you for everything, Destiny. Her response came immediately, you're welcome. But you know what? You saved me too. You listened when nobody else would. Marcus set down his phone and looked at the framed photo on his desk. Alicia and baby Jordan, frozen in time, forever young. For 3 years, that photo had been a monument to guilt. Now it was just what it should have been all along. A memory of people he'd loved, who'd loved him back. I'm okay now, he whispered to them. I think I'm finally okay. Outside, the city hummed with life. Millions of people moving through their evenings, unaware of the quiet miracles that kept them safe. A girl who saw disasters before they happened. A man who'd learned to listen. A system that finally puts people before protocol.it wasn't perfect. It never would be, but it was better. And sometimes Marcus thought better is enough. He raised his glass toward the window, toward the city that had broken him and rebuilt him, toward the future that had seemed impossible 6 months ago. To second chances, he said aloud, and to the children brave enough to give them. The whiskey was smooth and warm. The night was clear. And for the first time since the fire that took his family, Marcus Webb felt something he'd forgotten was possible. Hope. 1 year after the Randolph Street Bridge collapse, the Webb Foundation for Public Safety prevented 4 major infrastructure failures, evacuated 3 neighborhoods before a chemical plant leak, and consulted on disaster preparedness plans in 11 states. Destiny Johnson, age 11, served on the foundation's Youth Advisory Board. She also made honor rolls, won her school science fair, and stopped having nightmares about fires. Shanice Johnson became the Grandview Hotel's director of operations. She and Marcus remained close friends, bonding over weekly dinners and their shared commitment to keeping Destiny grounded. Marcus Webb never returned to Webb Industries. Instead, he found purpose in protection, meaning in prevention, and family in the most unexpected places. Sometimes salvation doesn't come from wealth or power. Sometimes it comes from a 10-year-old girl brave enough to steal your keys and change your life forever.